What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about brand new drugstore makeup, my favorite topic to talk about here on YouTube. And I have some things from Moira Cosmetics, from e.l.f., Physicians Formula, Hard Candy, and more. So if you enjoy drugstore makeup reviews, be sure to hit the subscribe button before you go. And I also have an entire playlist of this drugstore series from 2023, so I'll be sure to link that at the end in case you want to check out more videos like this. So let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. All right, so why don't we go ahead and start out with e.l.f. They have just been killing it these days. First up is the new liquid poreless putty primer. So you guys remember their original putty primer in the pot, and I was pretty sure that that was supposed to be a dupe for the Tatcha silk canvas that also comes in the little pot. And to be honest with you guys, I didn't really like either one of those. I thought the Tatcha was better than the e.l.f. for me, but I just wasn't a fan of them. I just felt like they didn't really do much for my skin. But the Tatcha liquid silk canvas, on the other hand, is one of my favorite primers of all time. So when I saw that e.l.f. was coming out with a liquid version, I was really hoping that it was going to be a dupe for this one, because this one's really expensive. I have the mini right now, but the big one is like $52. It's not cheap. So the e.l.f. one is $10, and this claims to smooth your skin, blur the pores. It's also supposed to help grip your makeup, which is something I wasn't really expecting in the claims, but that's really cool. It also contains squalane, and to be honest with you, it feels pretty identical to the Tatcha primer as far as the texture goes. It has a thicker, more cushiony feel. It definitely has like a silicone type base, but it also has this creaminess to it that I think really sets it apart from your basic silicone primer. So I wanted to kind of compare the two side by side. I used the e.l.f. on one side, the Tatcha on the other, and then I took close-up before and after photos as well. So when I was applying the e.l.f. one, I felt like the experience was really, really similar to when I'm applying the Tatcha. It gave my skin a really nice smooth canvas. It visibly blurred my pores. And when I look from one side, you know, with the primer to the other side without, I really feel like it took down the shine and it gave my skin a softer appearance, which is really nice. Then when I applied the Tatcha to the other side, I felt like it had pretty much the exact same feel, and it also made my skin look a lot softer and smoother. So now I want to show you guys just the before and after close-up photos, starting with the e.l.f. So this one, I think we can definitely see a huge difference in the pores near my nose. In the after photo, they look much less noticeable, and my skin just has a softer, almost like more blurred look in the after. I feel like my skin texture doesn't look quite as rough. And then on the Tatcha side, honestly, this wasn't quite a fair comparison because I have a little more texture over here on this side of my face, and I also have more sun damage, which is kind of getting in the way. But the Tatcha also, I feel like, did a really great job at softening the texture that's there and making my skin look a whole lot smoother. So I just want to note a couple of things about the formulas of these two. So the first ingredient in the Tatcha is actually fermented rice water, followed by regular water and then dimethicone. It also has camellia leaf extract, it has silk powder and glycerin and other plant extracts, while the e.l.f. one is basically just water, dimethicone, glycerin, a couple of other ingredients. It actually does have the camellia leaf extract as well, but it's all the way down like at the very bottom of the list. So the Tatcha one does have more skincare ingredients in it, but it's kind of like if you're wearing skincare already, do you really need your primer to have skincare in it? I mean, not really. I don't think it's a must-have. Another thing I wanted to mention, though, is that the Tatcha one does contain fragrance, and it's pretty strong when you're putting it on. I personally like the smell of it, but for those of you who have a sensitivity to fragrance or you just don't like fragrance in your skincare products, I wanted to mention that because the e.l.f. does not contain fragrance and it doesn't smell like anything going on. So that's another, I think, big point of difference. Overall, I think they both had a very similar look and feel on my skin. They performed very similarly, and makeup actually went on top of both sides of my face really nicely. There was no pilling. I also really loved the way that they gripped my foundation. It felt like it was just grabbing it and sucking it right in. And as someone with dry skin, I prefer the creamy feel of this to something like their Power Grip Primer, which has a little more of a gel-like texture. I really thought that this performed beautifully. Plus, I love the way that this smooths my pores. The Power Grip one doesn't really do that. So I think this is an awesome primer. While I don't think it's 100% dupe as far as like the ingredients being different and all of that. I think it's one of those dupes that's close enough that you really can't tell much of a difference between them. So I think this is awesome. Also from e.l.f., they have the new Putty Color Correcting Eye Brightener. So this comes in 6 colors. It's only $6. And I have to admit, I was a little bit skeptical when I first saw this because the putty products in general can sometimes be a little bit on the drier side. And usually with a blush or a bronzer, that's fine because I don't like them to be dewy or sticky. But when it comes to putting products underneath my eyes, and that's more of a dry area for me, I want it to be a little bit dewy. So I was hoping that this had a little bit of emollients to it. So let's take a quick look at the packaging up close. This one contains squalane and hyaluronic acid. It comes in the same packaging as their putty blushes and bronzers and all of that. I got the lightest shade, which is Fair. This also claims to have medium coverage, illuminating pearls, and a tint to correct darkness, and it's supposed to create a smooth canvas for your concealer to go on top of. I was actually pleasantly surprised that this does have a creamier feel than their other putty products. Now, this might change as the container is being opened over and over again. It might dry out as time goes on, but for now, I think it feels pretty similar to the Becca one, so I wanted to do a quick comparison with those as well. I also have the lightest shade in the Becca. They look pretty darn close when you look at them in the packaging. The Becca one obviously comes in a glass jar. It feels more luxe and high-end, while the e.l.f. one is plastic, but the product inside, which is what really counts, seems similar. Now, when I swatch the Becca one, it does seem to be a little bit thicker, and I think it kind of has more coverage, but I'm curious to see how they look on the eyes, so I want to do that really quickly. So first I'm applying the e.l.f. one, and I like to focus color correctors on the outer and inner corners of my eyes because that's where I have the most darkness. If I have any excess on my fingers, I might bring it down underneath my eyes a little bit, but since that's where I have some fine lines, I don't like to put a lot of product there if I can help it. Overall, I think this did an amazing job at canceling out the darkness around my eye. I think it looks so much brighter than the other side, and it also just sits on the skin so nicely. It's not cakey or dry. It's actually very seamless. I'm super impressed with this one. On the Becca side, one thing that I did notice was because it's a little bit thicker, it took me a long time to blend this one into my skin. I spent a ton of time patting and blending while I felt like the e.l.f. one just melted in really fast. And in the end, once you shear out the Becca one, I didn't feel like the coverage was that much more than the e.l.f., to be honest. I mean, I do think the Becca one is great at canceling out the darkness as well, but the e.l.f. putty version just really holds its own here. And afterwards, I felt like concealer applied beautifully on top of both of them. So again, I don't think we have an exact dupe here. They feel a little bit different, but I think the true test is going to be, does the e.l.f. one dry out after a couple months, or is it going to stay creamy like the Becca one? I've had this one for probably like 8 or 9 months, and it still feels just as creamy as it did when I first got it. The e.l.f. one, I don't know what's going to happen 8 or 9 months from now after using it and opening it up a bunch, so it'll definitely be worth revisiting this down the road. But for now, I think it's a really great $6 color corrector. It gets the job done. It looks so seamless and beautiful. So if you have your eye on this, I do think you'll really enjoy it. Moving on, I got a couple new things from Physicians Formula. The first one is this new Butter Brazilian Brow Lift Brow Gel. This claims to have unstoppable hold and a brow lamination effect, which I do really like, so I was excited to try this out. The color of the tube is so pretty, and it's a clear formula. I don't believe it comes in any other shades at the moment. I also think that the brush is really interesting. It looks like a spiky mascara wand, and it has a little bend at the top. The spikes are only on one side. The other side of the brush is completely smooth. And I also do want to mention that this has their classic butter bronzer smell that's like a coconut scent. So if that bothers you, you may want to avoid this one. When I applied it for the first time the other day, my excitement about the unique brush kind of faded pretty quickly. Don't get me wrong, it did work, but because my brows are so thin and the spikes are a little bit on the longer side, I felt like I wasn't getting enough of the product into my brows. I felt like I was just kind of scraping my skin with the silicone bristles and just getting like a tiny little bit of product on my brows. So I really had to keep going over them and over them a million times. Now, I think that this might work better for somebody who has thicker brows because a brush like this I think could work really well for taming longer brow hairs. But for somebody like me who has really sparse brows, I just feel like a spoolie works a lot better. Now, as far as the formula goes, this does have incredible hold. I mean, my brows stayed in place all day long, which was great, but they also felt incredibly stiff throughout the day. And some of the reviews on the Target website, the the very few negative ones there are, because most of them were like imported over from the Physicians Formula website, which we all know like they can control their reviews. So most of the reviews on this are extremely positive. The few negatives that I did see complained that it was flaking everywhere. I didn't personally experience that, but I also wasn't really paying too much attention. I just noticed that throughout the day, my brows kind of felt stiff, like especially if I like raised my forehead up and down, I could kind of feel it. I've been using the Too Faced Fluff and Hold brow wax, and that also gives that laminated brow effect and incredible hold. But my brows, like I'm wearing that one today, my brows just feel a lot softer, but they still stay in place. Plus I like the spoolie on that one better. So overall, I think this is definitely a product that lives up to its claims as far as holding your brows like glue. I mean, it really has an incredible hold. But for me and my brows personally, because they're thinner, I just didn't feel like the brush worked that well. But for others, especially those of you who have thicker brows or ones that are unruly and you need something really strong to hold them, I think you might really enjoy this. So it's worth checking out. Another product from Physicians Formula are these new butter, bronzer, and contour palettes. So they did send me 2 different versions to check out. The first one is Contour 1, which is for lighter skin tones. Then there's Contour 2 for deeper skin tones. And I'm not going to swatch 2, but I will give you a close-up look at it just in case you're curious. I am going to put it in my giveaway pile just so it doesn't go to waste. So let's start out with Contour 1. Inside you have a matte highlighting powder, a matte contour, which is cooler toned, and then a matte bronzer on the bottom, which is warmer toned. And it claims to have an unbelievably smooth texture and finish, which I would absolutely 100% agree with. This formula, oh my gosh, is so silky and smooth. I couldn't believe it, even more so than the butter bronzer and some of the other products in their line. I was just blown away. They just feel so luxurious. The contour and bronzer look like they might be a little bit too deep for my skin tone, but I kind of wondered if I mixed some of the highlighting powder in, if that would lighten them up a little bit, because I tend not to use a matte highlighting powder anyway, so that could be another option as well. Quickly, let's look at Contour 2. Again, you have the highlighter in the top left, then the contour on the top right, and the bronzer along the bottom. So hopefully seeing the colors in the pan will give you somewhat of an idea of what this would look like. So when I actually went to apply this, instead of doing like the highlighting powder, like they have a little chart on the back of where to put everything. I'm not really somebody who likes to like sculpt my face all over. I don't really do that. Sometimes I'll contour under my cheekbones, but as a rule, I tend not to use like all 3 of these products separately. So I thought it might be fun to just take a big bronzer brush like this and just swirl all the colors together. And it actually worked out so well that way for me. So I was really happy that I did that. The cooler powder kind of balanced out the warmer one. The highlighting shade lightened them all up. But honestly, these are so silky and smooth. I think even if you use the colors at full strength on their own, they would sheer out quite a bit. I just really love how this powder doesn't look dry. It doesn't look powdery. It's ultra finely milled and it's just the most seamless powder ever. I might like the texture even better than the original butter bronzer. Actually, no, I definitely do. There's no question. It's just so effortless. Speaking of which, this also does have the coconut scent that the butter bronzer has. So again, if that's something that bothers you or annoys you, you may not enjoy this powder. And I know I didn't end up using this in the way that it's intended, but I really loved it anyway. And I just felt like it made the perfect color once I swirled all the colors together. So overall, I think this is a beautiful product, whether you do what I did or if you use them all separately. I think you'll be really happy with this. All right, let's move on to Moira. I was so beyond excited to get their new Everlust cream shadows. These looked so incredible when I saw them on Instagram, and they sent me all 10 shades to try out. I feel like these look super similar to the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize, which I do have, so we'll be comparing them in today's video for sure. Just a quick look though, first at the packaging. These come in little pots with a gold cap, and you can see the color right through on the bottom, which is nice. It's just easy to see them at a glance. The shade name, unfortunately, is a little harder to find because it's in really small print on the side, kind of like the e.l.f. putty blushes, but at least you could see the colors from the bottom, so I think they probably didn't want to cover that up with the name. Inside the product is a whipped texture. It honestly looks so similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. And just for reference, the Charlotte Tilbury do come in like a really luxurious, heavy frosted glass jar. But again, to me, the packaging isn't as important as what's inside. So you can see that side by side, they both look like they have the same fluffy whipped texture. I'm just gonna pick up the Moira one in the shade Melrose. And this is a really super creamy eyeshadow. It doesn't have a stiff feel at all. It's very, very smooth. It just glides across the skin. Then picking up Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk, feels almost identical and it blends out on the skin pretty much the same way. I think these really do feel incredibly similar. These are not the same color, but just based on how they swatch, like I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between the two if they were, because they feel that similar. So let me just quickly show you all of the colors, and I really just love this range because it's neutral and it's wearable, and I think these would all make really great one and done shadows. So starting from left to right, we have the shades Olive Grove, then Silver Lining, Metallic Taupe, Mocha Bronze, Copper, Strawberry Glaze, Melrose, Dazzling Brown, Champagne Kiss, and then Pearl White at the end. So all of these seem to have kind of a satiny finish. They're not super shiny or metallic. Pearl White, Dazzling Brown, and Olive Grove seem to have tiny little micro glitters in the formula, but I think it's a pretty subtle effect overall. And I think that these would be good for those of you who don't want like a lot of shimmer or shine or like a metallic look on your lids, just a little hint of glow. So I decided to put these to the test against the Charlotte Tilbury, one on one eye, one on the other. And I'll be applying my absolute favorite Charlotte Tilbury shade, Oyster Pearl. I use this one so often when it comes to just like one and done eyeshadow days. I love this color. It's just the most beautiful taupe. So starting with the Moira side, I applied the shade Metallic Taupe. This one is kind of similar to Oyster Pearl, and I just applied this to my lid with my finger and blended it out, just kind of patting it lightly up toward my crease. I do think it applied really nicely. It gave me ample time to blend before it set down, which was great. And overall, I didn't have any issues with it. I thought it applied really well, and it did remind me a lot of the Charlotte Tilbury. So then on the Charlotte Tilbury side, I applied Oyster Pearl in the same way. And while this color is slightly deeper, I did feel like it gave me a little bit more coverage, was just like slightly more pigmented. By the way, please excuse the messy application. I would normally take a brush and blend these out like around the edges, but since I wasn't going anywhere that day, I was really just kind of experimenting, and I didn't do the neatest job applying these. So apologies about that. I didn't notice it until I went to edit the video, but I think the biggest difference between these two looking side by side, and I don't know if it's visible to you guys on camera, but the Moira side, I feel like you can kind of see the little micro glitters, and that's what's giving a bit of the sheen. While on the Charlotte Tilbury side, it does have a sheen, but it's a more pearlized effect in the formula itself, which makes it just look a little bit smoother on the eyes, and I prefer it to the little glitters. Also, while I was wearing these throughout the day, I noticed that the Moira side faded a little bit faster than the Charlotte Tilbury one did, and it kind of left more of a wash of those glitters behind, while the Charlotte Tilbury faded a little bit more evenly throughout the day, and it faded a little bit more slowly as well. That being said, neither one of these are crease-proof shadows on me. I'd say I got probably like about 8 hours of wear out of them before I looked in the mirror and I saw a little bit of creasing on both sides. Now, it wasn't terrible creasing where it looks really obvious. You really kind of had to look for it, but I did see them just starting to settle in the crease of my eye on either side. So I think because these have that softer, more moussey feel, they're not going to dry down as completely as, let's say, like a liquid shadow. They're not going to be quite as bulletproof in that way, and I think if you're looking for something like that, Moira has the Diamond Days liquid shadows or their new super hyped pigments. Those do not crease on me at all because they just dry completely. And overall, I do like the Moira ones. I think they're probably the closest thing I've ever found to the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize. These have been one of those products that I just was never able to dupe before. And while I don't think these are exactly a dupe because I prefer the Charlotte Tilbury formula slightly, and I think they just look a little bit smoother on the eye and they're a little more glowy, less glittery. I think they do feel exactly the same and they're a very similar concept. I think if you like something a little bit more subtle on the eyes that isn't super metallic, these little micro glitters don't really enhance your texture. So if you're somebody who's like avoiding metallic shadows due to texture on your lids, I don't think that these are going to bother that necessarily, but if you're somebody who just wants a little bit more pop on your eyes and more of that metallic finish, I would suggest maybe Moira's Star Shadow Pots. Those are like really bold and pigmented and really shiny, or their Lucent Cream Shadows, because those just have a little bit more oomph to them than these do. These are definitely a lot more subtle. So I think it just really depends on what your preferences are. Next up, Moira has these new multi-chrome eyeliners. These are called the Supernova Multi-Chrome Gel Liners. They did send me the whole collection, which I was so excited about. They look really, really incredible, and so many of you have been asking me to review them. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. Packaging wise, they're really, really pretty. They come in a clear tube so you can see through the entire pencil, which is so cool. And they're a twist up style as well. You don't have to sharpen them, which is great. And then this one in particular is the color 10 Ultra. It seems to have a really creamy feel, and I can definitely see the shift that it has. It looks like it has pink and purple and blue. It's really gorgeous. And I did think that these reminded me a lot of the Kaleidos multi-chrome pencils. They just look super similar, even down to the packaging. The Kaleidos one also has a see-through tube, and it has the plastic on the outside that kind of shows the gradient of the different colors that are inside. So I want to just do a quick live swatch. We have Tourmaline from Kaleidos. This is a green that shifts from copper to yellow. It's so, so pretty. And then next to that, we have Moira's Atlas, which I thought was going to be a similar color, but it's actually completely different. But anyway, I do think they apply very similarly. They have a creamy feel and just really pretty color shifts. So I want to show you a look at the swatches of all the Moira shades together. From left to right, we have Ultra, Buzz, Zora, Rhea, Nova, Flare, Electra, Phoenix, Roma, and Atlas. Now, a couple of these shades have glitter, some don't. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to see the shifts in this lighting, which is a bummer, but in real life, they are super pretty. And because I have hooded eyes, I'm not somebody who likes to create these big, bold, graphic eyeliner looks. And if I put a liner along my lash line, you can't really see it all that well because of my hooded eyes. So I wasn't really sure how to demo these for you. And in the end, what I decided to do was just take one and put it all over my lid, because I did see one of the models on the Moira website have these just all over their eye. So that's what I did today with the shade Ultra. I did use my Aurora palette from ColourPop just to add like a crease color and an outer corner, but then I put this all over my lid and it did come out really well. The only thing I would say is they're not as creamy when you go to apply it all over your lid. There was a lot of like tugging involved. It felt a little bit dry, to be honest with you. So I would probably just stick to using these as liners. But again, like I mentioned, I don't know how often I would do that, just because on my eyes, they're not going to be super visible. If you're somebody who likes to do like the bold graphic liner looks, or if you have a bit more lid space than I do, then I think you might really enjoy these, but they're not super practical for me. I mean, I guess I could put them on my lower lash line too. That's always an option. But anyway, it did work as an eyeshadow. So that's probably what I would do the most with these. I think they're gorgeous. It just kind of takes a little bit of patience. So anyway, let's move on to CoverGirl. They have a brand new mascara, and I saw this at Walmart. This is called the Lash Blast Cleantopia Mascara. So they're just kind of going along with the whole clean theme lately. This claims to give extreme volume, and it contains aloe and ceramides, plus it has plant-powered fibers. It also has rainforest maracuja oil. They're kind of starting to sound like Tarte now. And it has an hourglass brush that wraps and lifts the lashes for up to 302% more volume. Who measures these things? I have no idea. But anyway, I felt like overall it was a pretty wet formula. It was easy to build it up quickly, but it didn't clump, which I thought was really nice. It was very easy to work with this one. And I did think that it gave me pretty good volume, not quite as much length as I'm normally looking for, but I did think the effect was nice. It gave me somewhat of a false lash look that I'm usually going for, and in the end, I liked the way my lashes looked when I applied this one. Sadly, it did smudge on me, before the end of the day, I looked in the mirror and I had black smudges like right at the outer corners over here. So that's definitely a deal breaker for me when it comes to mascara, because I want to feel confident that I can go about my day and not have to constantly check myself in the mirror to make sure that there are no black smudges under my eyes. So for that reason, I don't see myself reaching for this. I think when a formula says that it has like very hydrating ingredients like the maracuja oil and the ceramides and the aloe and all of that, they're typically not the most long-lasting formula. Like, they're trying to be moisturizing to your lashes, and I think that's a good thing. But in my experience, those formulas just tend to smudge all over. So I will not be repurchasing this one. Moving on, let's check out these new jumbo multi-sticks from NYX. So these are all over multi-sticks. They kind of look similar to their eyeshadow jumbo crayons that have been out for a really long time, but these are actually shorter, they're chunkier, and the eye crayons, get this, they actually have double the product. They have 0.18 ounces. The new multi-sticks have 0.09 ounces of product. And just holding them in my hand, I can feel how much lighter the new ones feel compared to the older eye crayon. It's also worth noting that the multi-sticks, the new ones, are $8, while the eye crayons that have twice as much product in them are $5.50. So I don't like how they made the new ones look bigger because they're chunkier, they're fatter, but they cost more and they actually have half the product in here. So that kind of doesn't seem right, but I wanted to let you guys know how much or how little product you're actually getting in these new ones. And I think if you're using them all over the face, they're gonna go much quicker than the eye ones as well. That being said, I think the two shades that I got look really pretty. I have Coconut Cake, which is a beautiful rose gold, and then Blueberry Muffin, which is a duochrome shade. And both of these have a really smooth feel. They have a little bit of a sheen, but they're not glittery or sparkly, which is really nice. I think they have more of that classic metallic type finish. So I think these are pretty. I did test out Blueberry Muffin on my cheeks the other day, and I applied it as a glowy blush instead of a highlighter, and it applied very easily right from the tube, and then I just blended it out with my fingers, and it's creamy enough that it blends very quickly. It's not sticky, and it does dry to a powder finish in about a minute or so. And I really loved the effect that this gave. I think it's a gorgeous color. It has that little bit of shift to it. So I do like these. I just wish that they included more product in the tube. I know that prices are going up and sizes are getting smaller, but the fact that they can give twice as much product in the eye one and still charge $5.50 for it just makes me wonder why. Like, why did they decide to put less in here? Well, I guess I know the reason. They're trying to make money, but I just feel like they probably thought we wouldn't notice. But I am wearing this one again, the Blueberry Muffin, on my cheeks in today's video, and I really do like it. I think it is so pretty. It adds just like a tiny little bit of glow, but it's not shimmery or glittery or anything. So I do like them. I just feel like a little bit upset that they have so little product in them. Okay, moving on to lips. I have two new products from Hard Candy to show you. So the first one are these new Glosstopia lip repair oils. So how cute are these? They're adorable. I saw them at my local Walmart. I'm not sure if they're online yet, but they should be very shortly if they're not. Otherwise, just go check your Walmart if it carries Hard Candy. So like I said, these are called Glosstopia lip repair oils. They did have a bunch of other colors, but I just got these two to try, and the packaging reminds me so much of Rare Beauty blushes or highlighters. They have the little ball on top. They're really cute, and they claim to be a nourishing lip oil that gives a smooth, glossy look as well as hydration. Inside, they have a large doe foot applicator, and they do contain vitamin E and squalane in the formula. So honestly, they don't have a lot of pigment to them. The purple one gives a barely there tint of color, and the coral one looks basically clear, which for me was a little bit disappointing. I do wish they had some sort of a tint, but that being said, they do have a very lightweight, slippery feel, and they're really like a true lip oil rather than a gloss. And I know a lot of you guys were disappointed in the NYX ones because you felt like they were too thick and they felt more like a lip gloss. So these definitely have that very thin lip oil sort of feel. But at the same time, I also feel like these don't last as long as a gloss would. It doesn't stick around too much. And one thing that I'm really not crazy about with these is the smell. It's kind of fruity, but also it's floral. And I've smelled this somewhere before. I want to say maybe it was like a L'Oreal lip product that smells this way, but it tastes kind of soapy as well if you happen to get it in your mouth, which I really don't like. It's that kind of smell that'll give me a headache if I smell it for more than like a minute or two. So I don't really see myself reaching for these, unfortunately, because of the smell. I think they are very hydrating and I like the packaging, but I just can't get past the smell and the taste. You do not want to get these in your mouth. They just don't taste very good. So for me, that was a bit of a bummer, but if you don't mind that type of fragrance, then you might really enjoy these because like I said, they are very hydrating on the lips. Also from Hard Candy, we have these new Insta Pout lip melts, and I was so excited to see these because lip melts are having a moment. So let's just take a quick look at the packaging. So these claim that they're supposed to soften and plump the lips. I got 4 shades, but they did have more in store at Walmart. Packaging wise, they have a cute little pink tube and the bullet inside is the flat slanted style, kind of similar to a lot of other tinted lip balms, and they do twist up from the bottom. So I want to show you guys quickly some swatches. The first shade is My Type. So these are a little bit more on the sheer side, but you can see like you can easily build them up and just get a little bit more color by going back and forth over them. They also give a really nice amount of shine as well. Next up, we have the One. This is a really pretty nude shade, and these have a little bit of tingle in the formula for a plumping effect. It's not super strong, so I think for those of you who don't like a lot of tingle, this probably won't bother you too much because I don't like tingly lip products and these don't really bother me. The next one's my favorite color. This is a cool tone pink called Meet Cute, and it is so pretty. I just fell in love with this one. It's gorgeous. And then finally we have the shade On Again, and it's an orangey terracotta shade that's just gonna be perfect for summer. So as you can kind of see, the texture of these is so melty, kind of similar to the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips, but they're not as thick as the Tarte ones. These have a lot thinner of a feel. So if I were to compare it to anything, it would be the Makeup by Mario lip balms. These are so similar right down to the packaging. I have 2 shades of the Makeup by Mario ones, and they also have the flat slanted style bullet. So they're really close. I'll quickly show you these swatched next to the Hard Candy one. So first we have Bronze Glow, and I do think these are a little bit more pigmented, like just slightly, but you can see that they have the same melty texture, and the Mario ones also have that little bit of a tingle as well. And then next to that is Bare Glow. This one is more of a peachy color. And I don't think the 2 Mario shades that I have are dupes for any of the Hard Candy colors, at least the ones I have. It's possible that they're dupes for some of the colors I didn't get, but the formula feels super similar, so they're kind of a dupe in that way. So I just want to show you all of the colors on my lips so you can see what they look like on. And I do think all of these are so pretty. They really do feel exactly like the Mario ones. I can't tell much of a difference at all. And normally, like I said, I'm not a fan of lip products that tingle, but these aren't too strong, so I can definitely tolerate them. Here's the one thing though. The Hard Candy ones don't seem to have much of a fragrance, but whatever it is very, very sweet. It might even be like a little bit coconutty, like a coconut vanilla or a cake-like type of scent. It's so faint that I can't even tell what it is, but I do know that it's something very sweet. Now, you might have noticed that when I started this video, my lip color looked a little bit different, and that's because I was wearing the shade Meet Cute. I had to take it off after I filmed my intro because when I was doing the lip swatches the other day, I didn't really leave it on my lips. I took it off like right away. But today, after wearing it for probably like 20 minutes before the video started, and then once I started talking, it got into my mouth. And these have like the worst taste of any lip product I've ever tried. And I don't say that lightly. I can still taste it, and I've had several sips of my drink here and I just can't get rid of it. It's like a super bitter chemical taste. Like that's the only way I can describe it. It tastes like, I don't know, I can't even describe it, but I do want to note that one of you guys, when I showed these in a YouTube short a couple days ago, one of you had commented and said that you loved the formula, but that the taste was horrible. And I was like, okay, you know, a lot of lip products don't taste good, so I wasn't really thinking that much of it. But these aren't just one of those lip products that kind of have a soapy taste like these do, or you can like kind of taste the fragrance a little bit. It's like a strong chemical type of scent. I honestly can't describe it, but it is so gross. It actually made me nauseous. And I can honestly say the Makeup by Mario ones do not do that. So I'm just so bummed because I felt like they had so much potential. They are so similar to the Makeup by Mario ones in just about every other way, but I just can't get past the taste of them. And I'd love to hear from you guys if you've experienced the same thing. I will unfortunately not be using those again. So anyway, guys, that's all I have for today's video. I think we had a lot of hits here, but a couple of misses as well. I think if we had to choose the winners in today's video, it would be the e.l.f. Liquid Poreless Putty Primer and their color corrector. I think these are both amazing. The Physicians Formula Contour and Bronzer palette is also beautiful. I really enjoyed that a lot. I did like the way that the NYX multi-sticks applied and wear. I think those are so pretty. And the Moira products as well. I don't think that they completely blew me away, but they're not bad. The things that really didn't work for me, the Covergirl mascara, definitely. The Physicians Formula brow gel, but I think this is me. I think you guys might really like it if you have like different brows than I do. And then the Hard Candy lip products were a definite pass. So anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to check out more just like it with drugstore reviews from products that launched in 2023, be sure to click this playlist right up here. And I want to thank you all so much for spending time here with me today. I really appreciate it so much. And if you're new here and you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider hitting the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all in my next video. Take care. Bye.